Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is a US elections special, just a short video concerning one thing really. Well, two things. There were two events last night in the calendar, where one was this huge moment where Kamala Harris, a Democratic nominee for president, went into the lion's den and was interviewed by Fox News, which is a very partisan place to go. And it's not something that Democrats of that basically presidential nominees have really gone. They try and keep it down the centre ground in terms of places to go. CNN, and I know people on the right will say CNN are far on the left. People on the left think it's corporate centre rightism, so whatever. But the reality is that you won't get Trump going on MSNBC. And you won't get Harris going on Fox News, except you do. We have had Harris now going on Fox News. While Trump has not gone anywhere in the last month, he's done real softball interviews. He goes on Fox News to some of his favoured peeps, but hasn't been seen on mainstream media outside that. And so I think Kamala Harris is saying, right, how do we break this deadlock? Let's go and be a little bit risky. And if we can do Fox News, that means I can pretty much go anywhere. And if we can get through that, then that's good. So it was all about really not tanking on Fox News, making sure she held her own and presented herself to the Fox News viewer who doesn't get to see her unfiltered, right? They see it through an edited Fox News lens, and we'll talk about that in a second, to go on there and show that she is essentially strong and see if she can get any kind of quotable segments off there that she could then use to her advantage. Fox News, on the other hand, would want the successful Trump to be a gotcha moment of Harris, so that can itself be exerted and thrown around on social media. So that's what both sides wanted, and I think probably on balance, Harris did all right. Right? It was probably a good thing that she went on there, and she did pretty well. What's interesting, though, is that both sides are claiming this as a win for their own, fairly typically. So you just look through the headlines, and we see Kamala Harris calls out Fox News for airing misleading Trump clip during her interview. How to watch the Kamala Harris interview with Fox News if you missed it live. Key lines, so all a bit sort of neither nor there. And then we have opinion. Kamala Harris's Fox interview disaster, shows how the media set her up to fail. I represent a new generation of leadership. Harris pledges to a break from Biden in combative Fox News interview. We've got family of woman brutally raped and murdered by illegal immigrant reacts to Kamala Harris's claims in Fox News interview. That's a Mail Online, of course. Trump gives Kamala Harris scathing assessment after her first Fox News interview. That's Mail Online, so that's on the right. Then you have 4 takeaways from Harris's combative first Fox interview. Kamala Harris risked a lot for combative Fox News interview. It may not have paid off, so it's Sky News. Independent Fox News host Brett Baier criticised for interrupting Kamala Harris during fiery first interview. The View's Sarah Haynes says Brett Baier repeatedly interrupted Kamala Harris's Fox interview because she's a woman. Ex-Trump aide highlights powerful moment in Kamala Harris's Fox News interview. So on and so forth. We can keep going on. But essentially, I've heard people on my threads who are like proper Trumpists going, it was an absolute disaster. And I've got people who are big supporters of Harris and the Democrats saying it was an absolute win. There were some drop mic moments. And of course, the reality is probably somewhere in the middle. If you think that it was an absolute unmitigated disaster for her, then you are looking through looking at that interview with a very tinted lens. Likewise, on the other side, what you need to do is understand what the objectives were. And I think one of the best ways to understand it is by listening to Brett Baier's own words, right? So, and this is probably the most accurate assessment of the interview. The guy who interviewed her.
I actually think this is a different take. I think she had a mission that she wanted to do, and maybe she wanted to have a viral moment. She wanted to have a pushback. She came to Fox News and she wanted to have a go after Donald Trump viral moment that plays on a lot of other channels and on social media. And I think she may have gotten that.
If you are looking,
so there was an omission. That bit, I think she may have gotten that. In other words, she did get a viral moment, and the viral moment was this. I mean, this is one example. This is Bulwark, Tim Miller, former Republican spokesman himself. Now, boom! Exclamation mark. You know, the moment Kamala Harris put Fox News in its place. So again, this is where anti-Trumpists are saying, you know, she absolutely held her own, and it was you know, there were these brilliant moments. And then if you're a Trumpist, you're going to say, oh, she evaded some answers here. When she was asked this, she pivoted to attack Donald Trump. But that's actually exactly what she would wanted to have done. On the one hand, right. So the questions she sort of evaded were, you know, difference from Biden, and are you just continuing? It's this classic. I was watching an analysis today that was like, she has to do this almost impossible thing, which is on the one hand, celebrate all the successes of the Biden-Harris regime, the Biden-Harris administration, whereby they've actually got the economy into a really good position at the moment. All the metrics are looking amazing for the American economy right now. Generally speaking, you've got record-breaking numbers on the stock market still going on. You've got record unemployment statistics, so on and so forth. So on the one hand, she's got to say, yeah, look at what we did. This is brilliant. And on the other hand, say, I'm not Joe Biden. I'm not just carrying on what he did, even though what we were doing was really good. So that is a really difficult thing to do. And it is almost impossible. She has to be same, but totally different. Look what we did, but I'm kind of not going to continue doing that, even though actually what's wrong with continuing to do that? Because it was really successful. That's really difficult. So when she's pressured in an interview to saying, you know, Joe Biden, she doesn't quite answer that, which is a very politician thing to do. And I would normally criticize people for doing that. But her one job, I think, is exactly what Scott Baier is saying there, is to get the hits in on Donald Trump in a way that the people watching Fox News might go, oh my goodness, A, she's strong, B, she might have a point there. So it's irrelevant that she kind of evaded the Joe Biden difficult question there. Let's listen to that then. This is the key excerpt that people seem to be playing an awful lot.
If he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States, why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a cakewalk for anyone.
So are they misguided, the 50%?
Listen,
are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within it.
And notice here, and what people liked about this, who are favourable of her performance here, is actually she genuinely gets angry. This is, you could argue it's performative, but actually I would say this is her. And you start to understand that actually she is indignant about Trump's behaviour. She is insulted by his political rhetoric, and she is genuinely angry and worried about the state of democracy and worried for democracy if Trump was to be elected. And what she's doing here is A, communicating that to the audience, but also communicating her strength and the fire in her belly.
Within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
And he then plays the Harris Faulkner interview. Now, the other part of this video is that he went and had this, scare quotes, town hall with Fox News, with Harris Faulkner, and they stacked the audience full of Trump supporters. And it was supposed to be some all-woman audience. And realistically, he should have been given some really hard questioning on abortion and women's rights and IVF. But instead, like, the questions they asked were all framed, like, every question was like, oh, what do you think of the woke liberal? Like, these people asking these questions as if they are testing questions, and they're all framed within, I hate woke liberalism. So all of the questions in that town hall were absolutely, it was the most pro-Trump town hall. It wasn't a town hall. Now there are these like people calling for investigation or whatever, people being highly critical of Fox, basically creating an audience that was totally pro-Trump. Anyway, that aside, he gave this answer about the enemy within and even mentioned Pelosi as an example of the enemy within. And instead of playing that, Fox News, Scott Baier, lines up the clip here that is not the bit about him talking about the enemy within. So he, on the one hand, Scott Baier's, she's talking about the enemy within, and he said, well, we asked this to Trump, and this is what he said, and it's actually not what he said. It's not the relevant part to what she is talking about. So this is disingenuous of Fox, and she calls him out on it, as you will see.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Brett, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you,
that was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy.
Anger.
And in a democracy,
righteous anger,
the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes.
Boom, boom. This is really where she...
So lots of people, as you can hear from Tim Miller there, talking about that is the moment. And that's actually the moment that Scott Baier is talking about in terms of your clippable viral moment. So what you want to do when you understand these interviews is not how it plays with the people that absolutely freaking hate Kamala Harris. And no matter how she performed or how she came across in that interview, they would be saying it was an absolute disaster. And you don't want to be asking the other people over here thinking it was absolutely miraculous and superb. You want to be asking who are the people watching Fox News who are maybe low information, low propensity voters who don't have a real handle on this election yet. They're just starting to dip into this election, just getting introduced to who Kamala Harris is. They turn it on, oh, Fox News, I always watch Fox News. Oh, let's listen to Kamala Harris. Oh, I don't like her because Fox News has said A, B, and C about her. Let's see if that is the case. And she's on there and she's not weak and she's not word salady, right? So what we keep hearing from Donald Trump is she's just word salad, and yet Donald Trump's the one with word salad. Let's see, is she word salad? No, she's concise and she's strong and she's rhetorically robust and having it and using every opportunity there to criticize Trump in a way that Fox News would never criticize Trump. So every question, she pivots the question to be attacking Trump. This is the objective here for her going on Fox News, I think, was broadly achieved by her going on Fox News. Did she answer all the questions exactly how the Fox News person would have wanted them answered? No, like she would have evaded certain questions and pivoted to talk about what she wants to do, which is pretty much what most politicians do anyway, and certainly what we've seen Trump doing. And I would criticize her for doing that if I didn't know better for what her objectives were, which is she would have been trained, every single answer, you need to somehow shoehorn in criticisms of Trump, because this audience does not hear that. They don't hear that, and you need to hammer that home. And she did that. And so when I hear people saying, oh, what a disaster for Kamala Harris, absolutely not. The only people who can tell us whether that was a success or a disaster are the people it was designed for, which are the undecideds and the independents who are watching Fox News. And my question would be, how did it land with them? Now, that everyone on both sides is claiming it is amazing or a disaster means that actually somewhere in the middle, you are probably going to have some purchase. And therefore, I think it probably was a success in the same way that even Scott Baier admits. And that's super, super important. It's all about optics. This is kind of like how I see this polling average meme is pretty good. Vibes versus data. So Kamala Harris was winning in a landslide back in, just early September, just after being, July, August. You had this amazing wave. And that was, I don't know, 2.9% difference, 3% difference or whatever. Now it's averaged to 2.4. It's all over Trump's won. And it's like, what a disaster. And yet you're having record numbers in Pennsylvania and Georgia, turning out for the early vote. Now, will that benefit Democrats or not? It's probably too early to see. But there's arguably some really strong excitement. And in some cases, it's looking North Carolina could be an interesting place. It's more likely that the Democrats are going to win North Carolina than Georgia at the moment. Pennsylvania looks good for the Democrats. And if they win Pennsylvania, then Trump's only got less than 10% chance of winning the election. So, this is an election of small margins and performances. I say performance, carefully, because I don't think it was a performance, but also there was a lot of integrity and honesty in what Kamala Harris, in how she came across there. Like, that righteous indignation and anger wasn't performative. She genuinely feels that. And I think the idea is that she's communicating that to a very small portion of the electorate who's watching Fox News. And I think, arguably would have been successful for doing that. In terms of the polls, they're just all over the place at the moment. We are starting to see a number of polls coming in for Harris in the general election polls, but the swing state polls are where it is, right? So in general election wise, she's doing pretty well. She's still 3-4% at the moment. She's pretty steady and has that advantage, which is a fairly decent advantage, but 4% nationally doesn't necessarily mean she's going to win those 7 swing states, and where things are a lot more particular. Interesting poll that I like is that if Norway got to vote on the election, it would be at 84.1% for Harris and 10.6% for Trump. So my view is that probably Norway should vote. New York Times said the other day that black voters drift from Democrats, imperiling Harris's bid. But today's CBS poll shows that Kamala Harris getting the exact same numbers from black voters that Biden got in 2020, and Biden won. Don't obsess over the polls, folks. Just vote. So, people are talking about these polls in, you got same poll being talked about effectively in 2 different ways, or similar polls being talked about very differently. Simon Rosenberg. So a short thread about why it's so important to Trump that it be perceived that he's leading in the polls when he isn't. In some, it's his campaign's primary strategy to obscure his historic ugliness. He's got some really interesting views on this. I saw him interviewed the other night on a show where he talked about how the Republicans are loading these polls big time. I talked about that in the last video, and he's kind of mentioning it here. So Trump may be a rapist, fraudster, traitor, and 34 times felon, but he's leading in the polls and is strong. Trump may be dangerous extremist, a bigot, misogynist, and racist, but he's leading in the polls and is strong. Trump may want to end the global economy, which has made us prosperous, end the Western alliance, which has kept us safe, end American democracy, which has kept us free, but is leading in the polls and is strong. Trump is leading in the polls and is strong is a way to make all of his ugliness disappear, which is why his campaign is working so hard to create a false impression that he's ahead. To Trump, it is arguably his most important issue in the election. Based on everything we can see, it sure appears that the Trump campaign knows they are not winning, and it appears their candidate is starting to freak out. More desperate losing candidate vibes from Trump. A frustrated Trump lashes out behind closed doors over money. It's the New York Times, and Trump's message the last few days feels like a desperate message of a losing campaign. Some days back. So basically, be careful about the polls. And also, I was learning the other night, and I think it was it from Simon Rosenberg as well, talking about Polymarket. People talk about Polymarket is Nate Silver's betting odds thing, and Polymarket is frequently saying that Trump is ahead at the moment. I didn't realise, but Polymarket, if you're American, you can't even bet on Polymarket. Polymarket is based in the Caribbean, and Americans technically can't bet on it, and so therefore it is a really bad evaluative tool to work out what's going on here, and it can be gamed by Russians, by anyone, big bettors who want to give a perception that Trump's doing really well. So I'm not going to pay any more attention to Polymarket, and that's a really interesting view that I wasn't aware about. What was more pertinent is stuff like this. So the Republican campaign had a leaked memo recently that have I not got that? Where is it? Leaked memo. No, I don't. I thought I had the leaked memo. Yeah, here it is, actually. Sorry. A serious trouble spot. Leaked internal memo warns the GOP sees the senatorial campaigns in danger. So this leaked memo actually showed that the senatorial campaigns in a number of places are much closer or better for the Democrats than the public is being led to believe. So a leaked memo, the memo itself, indicates that the Democrats are doing a lot better. So these particular senatorial races, actually only Montana, John Tester, but even that he's closer than other people have been claiming previously. In Texas, you've got Ted Cruz. Colin Allred in Texas gave Ted Cruz an absolute mauling in a debate the other night, which is well worth watching. And so there are some big senatorial worries, which could lead to you've got Osborne in Osborne in Nebraska. So he's an independent running, that he's been endorsed by the Democrats, but he's an independent permission structure for Republicans to vote for him. You might not get the Senate, switching hands in this election. There are a couple of interesting races. So if Ted Cruz actually loses in Texas, and yet John Tester loses in Montana, maybe, but if you're gaining in Texas and gaining in Nebraska, an independent who might caucus with the Democrats, things are interesting. So it is a fascinating race. It is incredibly tight. But going back to the main topic here, when you've got Trump is not going into the lion's den, who has pulled out the CBS, he pulled out of going on Squawk Box on CNBC. He pulled out of the 60 Minutes with CBS. He's pulled out of a debate with Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris, on the other hand, has said, right, I'm going to go on Fox News. There's rumors that she's going to go on Joe Rogan. She's everywhere on TV and all over the place at the moment, realizing that she has to, if Trump is receding or only going to these very soft areas, then she needs to take advantage of that and show herself to be strong. And that's what she's doing. And I think that's a really interesting maneuver for her. And I do think, on balance, going on Fox News paid off for her. It was tough, but it was always going to be tough. It was never going to be a walk in the park. And I think she stood her ground, and she did all right. And I think doing all right there, given that I think that's probably about as good as you could do, given you are against someone who is going to be trying their hardest to take you down. There's no softball here. This isn't a Fox News town hall for Trump. This is a Fox News, we're going to try and take Kamala Harris down. And I think the best she could have done there is broadly what she did, give or take. And that's pretty good, because it's going to be about those very few people in the middle who might look at that and understand that Kamala Harris isn't who Fox News normally paints her as being. That's the importance. Anyway, let me know what you think. And if you disagree, let's disagree with respect. Take care, guys, and speak soon.